comfort blanket, security blanket.
There you go.
She's lying, her
Yeah,
is lying.
Didn't tell you, chief.
Okay, welcome back
TV
to our
on
meeting. I have one item to get to. We'll go back. Two sections, but one, okay, 3.2. Let's put a time limit on this.
Me
10
as I
o'clock.
change positions for my.
Is that okay with everybody? Is an hour
So-
plenty? 45 minutes?
An hour.
So it really depends, so the roundtable part, or the part that was originally more just the discussion, I can. I'll put that in the big council rectangle.
Sorry, I just at that
Table.
point.
It's really kind of a timed thing, for like half an hour, you just throw things out, so that one has a time limit. The proclamation is up to you, how long you guys wanna spend on that.
Well, let's get through. Can we do the proclamation first, so let's see how much time? Okay. Okay, Nathan, I'm gonna let you. lead.
So, couple things on proclamations and policies. One, a proclamation is a non-binding, I don't statement, that's about all it is. It doesn't have any legal force, there's nothing to it. So that's a proclamation. A policy, if you choose to do a policy, a council adopts policies that adopt ordinances. If you adopt a policy, it doesn't bind council, it gives staff direction. So we're asking, as we have stuff come forward, we've had a few requests that we brought to you, you've chosen not to do it. Arbor Day, staff's done this for 16 years, so I didn't even think about it, go forward, they require proclamation, probably do a resolution. But there's not a written policy, but there is a practice, so Councilor Shields asked and seconded by several people to have a conversation, so here's where we're at. We are, as staff, are simply looking for direction, do you want a policy, what do you wanna do with this Arbor Day? I will say that being part of Arbor Day, I asked our staff, over those 16 years, we received a $20,000 grant, which was contingent on being a Tree City USA. $6,950 grant, and that was to build our gravel bed nursery, which is a bare root tree thing that Trent is doing. A $5,525 grant, which was for to attend the Urban Forestry Institute, so we sent that, that was paid for by the Arbor Foundation, so those are all within the last few years. And then back in 2007, they had a $5,000 grant around the skate park to add some trees.
They
So-
require us to have a proclamation to.
Their application requires a proclamation, a statement from the governing body that they support, or that they're in support of Arbor Day. So you do it by resolution, you do it by, it's been proclamation, they draft the proclamation, that's how most cities do it, so. Like I said, it just wasn't anything,
Right.
I didn't think about it when it came through, so. Apologize if I put you in an awkward place with that, like I said, it's been done for so many years, it never.
Yeah, I don't think you have anything to apologize for.
So maybe a little bit of history, at least for me, I've been through this a few times. Going back to, it was the old building where this kind of started, as far as council saying in general, we don't wanna deal with some of these things, or, to me, there's been kind of three things that, at least for me, is the filter, that at that time we suggested, and what spurred it was the school district pressuring us to make a proclamation or resolution, whatever the heck it was, supporting their bond. And apparently I and Craig Tishner were the first council members ever in the history of Jordan School District boundaries to vote no on it, and much ado was about that. And then we started getting more and more from mainly politically oriented things that didn't fall under our purview. So we started out by saying, look, and it wasn't an official policy, but just telling staff, we don't want all of these political type things. And then more recently, we had the abortion people come in. And I mean, talk about political and religious, and I mean, they were coming from both sides of it, because it was a church group. were not, I mean, they weren't going away until we just said, look, we aren't doing any of these things. So it hasn't been an official policy or anything, that's why I was like, yeah, absolutely, Steve, I think we should have the conversation and have a policy that guides staff on what comes to us. But again, as Nathan put it, that having that policy is more guidance for them and kind of general understanding for us, but it doesn't prevent us from discussing any of these and deciding to do anything if we want to. Right, it doesn't bind us at all, we make the rules, we can set that policy and tomorrow go and approve whatever proclamation you want to, right? I mean, it more really is just, to me, the way I look at it as a filter. So for me, there's kind of those three things, is it political in nature, where you could argue that anything that we talk about is political, but to me, that's going more towards those two things in particular, what I say, the religious stuff, the abortion thing in the school district. Well, I'm not going to tell anyone that I support something that they individually get to vote on, for one, right, the school district bond. And then, so is it political in nature? Does it fall under the city's purview? Is it something that that actually makes a difference in what we do in our city, right? Is it something that we're responsible for? And then three, is there a tangible benefit to the city, right? Is there a requisite to have whatever designation to apply for grants for something that is the city's purview? To me, those aren't hard and fast rules, it's just a filter of how does staff decide what they bring to us, what's, I don't wanna say frivolous in nature, but things that they know would just kind of be taking up our time unnecessarily versus things that we really should talk about. That's where I'm at, that's where kind of it's come, at least to me, where it's kind of come from and where.
Me too. My biggest thing is always, is it underneath my legislative authority? If I have any, if I have the ability to have any kind of legislative authority over it, then I can see, participating in those kind of proclamations. Like it was the same with the abortion thing with the Religious Freedom Day. If you come and talk to me as a person, I'll tell you all day long, and I'd be glad to sign a letter that says how I feel about certain things. But as a city council person, I feel more like, no, my job is legislative, and so I don't wanna be making proclamations about things that I have no influence over legislatively. The Arbor Day thing, it does kind of fall underneath that, in my opinion, just simply because it opens up funding, which really helps our city. So it does have a benefit, financial benefit for our city, because it enables us to qualify for those kind of grants and things like that. I don't care if we call it a proclamation or a statement or whatever we want to call it, but
So if somebody was gonna give us $100,000 for an abortion statement, would we do that?
good point.
My answer would be no, at least for me, like my filter is that just getting money, what does that money go towards, right? So if it's a religious thing where they're gonna donate $100,000 to us, well, for what, right? Do we build and run churches? Do we have a program that it would benefit, right? That, to me, that's is it under our purview, our authority, not just do we get money?
So it's not just the one, it's all of those.
Yeah, to me, it's like all three of those, and again, that's just kind of the initial filter. If there's who knows, maybe something comes up that, yeah, maybe it doesn't quite fit one of those, but is the other two, and we discuss it, and there's a reason to do it. Like I said, to me, it's not a binding, if it doesn't fit these three things, no way. It's just a filter of how does staff determine what comes to us, and do we have a general understanding of what we would do or not do? Because we all get that, right? Somebody approaches us and says, hey, I really want you to bring this to the rest of your council members and support whatever it is that they're involved in. And I could look at it and go, well, we have a general understanding that like this doesn't really fit, sort of thing. Or, geez, it's borderline, we should discuss it.
So I'll just say that the reason I asked for this to come forward was not any form of opposition to an Arbor Day proclamation.
That's why I said I totally agree. We should
I have no issues with Arbor Day or making any proclamation about Arbor Day.
Yeah, for sure.
I brought it forth because it created for me, some, I guess the word would be cognitive dissonance. I didn't see a consistent framework under which we were making decisions about issuing proclamations. And for me, I was the one who was supporting the proclamation about Religious Freedom Day, in support of that. At the time, I was making the argument that, we have an oath regarding the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Utah. I felt that was consistent with that, and we had some different debate and disagreement about that, and that's not the point. It's just that I felt like the reasons why we didn't support that could also be used to apply to why we wouldn't support one for Arbor Day. And I'm like, well, but we would support Arbor Day, why wouldn't we support? So it's the inability to resolve the different application of that caused me to say, I think it's something we should bring up. And I talked to Nathan about it earlier, and he said that he's seen councils that they'll do 4 or 5 or 6 proclamations a meeting, and they're just going all willy-nilly with it. I don't think any of us want anything like that. I don't think we want to have big presentations and people coming in requesting us to make proclamations about everything under the sun.
I don't wanna have a proclamation about putting on the border at that thing at the school. That's one of the questions that the kids ask me is, do you think we should close the border? And my answer to them was, that has nothing to do with me. You have to ask somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of exactly, right? There's certain things that are national political issues, there's certain things that are local political issues, state issues, and we speak out on all kinds of different things. I guess just following my thought about what Nathan was saying was that he has seen other cities adopt policies that, gives the city leeway to make certain proclamations and then the leeway to kind of inconsistently say, well, we don't want to make a proclamation about that, even though we have a precedent, we've made a proclamation about this, right? And it gives us as a council the ability to change our minds and be discriminating in how we do that. So, now that may offend some members of our constituency that see this as being, choosing one side or of an argument over another or being inconsistent. I think we have to use our collective, wisdom to hopefully make good decisions about that. But, I guess I would just say, as a way to support us making a proclamation about Arbor Day, I'd like us to hopefully define an ability for us to make appropriate proclamations in the future. I think we did something about Juneteenth a year or two ago or whatever it was.
We
I don't know what we call
made it a
it.
city
We made it a
holiday.
holiday.
Yeah, we didn't
Right.
take any,
But we didn't do a proclamation.
We just observed it because it's a federal holiday and
But
we
we-
have fun for it.
We talked about maybe doing a
said that we would
city event
observe.
about it or observe it or something, not
Well-
just making it a city holiday that we would observe and
Well,
pay people for,
Yeah, that's what, to me, what the decision was.
That was part of it,
is-
right. But we had further discussion about that. And again, that's not, I'm not opposed to, I think Juneteenth's awesome, man. I served a mission in the South and I lived in Biloxi for 5 years, man. Juneteenth is a big deal down there. It's cool. So I'd love to see it up here. But I guess I'm just saying, I'd like us to find a consistent policy to make those decisions.
And that's why I agree with it,
Yeah.
we brought it up as, there needs, for staff's sake especially, there needs to be something to consistently guide.
Nathan, did you have a chance to find any
I have-
suggestions or ideas about that?
there are several, that you can do it however you want. I think really what I would look for from direction are there some sideboards, do you like the idea
Love
if there's
his- I love
certain
his concept.
things that you're concerned about? Reality is, somebody's gonna come to us, we're gonna say, as staff, our policy, we're not gonna bring it forward. They're still
They
gonna
can
come to
still,
you, and a counselor can always champion it and bring it forward and say, I would like this to, if they get a second, and you put it on an agenda and have the discussion. So there are multiple policies, some of them will allow the mayor to do a mayoral proclamation, which just means, it doesn't say the city's declaring this, it's the mayor declares it. Okay. A council proclamation is that council proclaiming something, so generally it's best if that is unanimous.
Can we get a groundhog?
And that was one of the points that
We
going
could,
back to the
right?
school district thing, when Craig and I dissented, and like your proclamation says that we all agree and we're representing all of our constituents. Right, that to me, that's where the next line is, it's not just the city, like we individually are representing individuals. For me, I have a hard time reconciling that, right? I don't wanna speak for them on a political issue. To sorry to muddy the water a little bit, but to Steve's point, I mean, things will come up. We can go back to issues with Salt Lake County a few years ago, and this predates several. There was a push to basically have a bunch of areas separate from Salt Lake County, right? And it was big, there was a lot of lobbying going on at the Hill, Kim championed it. I spoke individually regarding it to several legislators, but when it came to the city, it was, well, this is something that would be voted on by the people, not us. I can't tell them what I think, but I could go out and tell them individually, these are all the reasons I think that you should, but I stopped short of saying, I don't think the city should tell
Yeah.
people what they should think that way, so your point, it's, I mean, if we want a policy, it would be more to guide them on how to filter things that come to us. Those people can still go around that filter and come to us individually and say, yeah, we want to talk about it. The other thing I would say is that rather than have any proclamation of any kind, even if it's somewhat innocuous and traditional, et cetera, it probably shouldn't be in the consent agenda. It should come to us, we can have that discussion, right? And
Right, fair.
So my reason to put proclamations on consent is to avoid the presentations on every single, cause even in this city, I look back in like 2018, there was one meeting you had 5 proclamations on there. With a presentation on each one, I'm like, holy cow, I mean.
that's what we want to avoid.
Those are
Recipe now,
midnight
change it.
meeting.
Got other things to worry about.
Deal.
Or,
Means we
well, I
both
guess to that point, we can always, well, it's on that agenda, but we can discuss it, right? We would
Well,
say,
this is, I think this one landed on the consent agenda too, cause it's been 16
yeah,
years in the making, right?
Yeah.
So it's,
And
it just,
I wanna be clear, I am not trying to oppose a
You
proclamation
just don't
on
like
Arbor Day.
Trent. You just don't like Trent.
That's all it is, I don't like trees.
I 100% agree with the consistency, right?
Right,
yeah.
That consistent track record makes a big.
So are we okay then kind of going the direction with you? Do you wanna start with what Jared recommended and we can debate
I
that?
can-
If you
I'll-
come back
I
with
will-
some-
Because there's not a, I'm gonna draft a policy and we'll bring it to you on, actually at a work meeting, cause it's not, I'm not gonna put anything together that's so polished that you're all ready to talk. It's not, and I'll give you some, you know, I thought about that, maybe I will, I'll use ChatGPT, we will write you, AI will write us a policy, it'll be beautiful.
yeah,
I'm-
that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, John's got a different one that we could use.
Mhm.
Copilot.
Yeah,
So
cool.
we'll figure it
No,
out.
do Anthropic, it's way better now.
We'll come back with something. I think I'll probably bring it to
Talking
work
about
meeting, so you can just,
Part
it
3.
doesn't need to be a long, if you like it, then we'll bring it right back. If it's close enough and you wanna give me some things, I'll bring it back and you can then debate it in there. I just don't wanna bring it to you in there and get circled around again.
Yeah. And I don't suggest that I would prostitute proclamations. I don't think that just because.
No, I don't think any of us want to.
No, I know what you're saying though, it's like,
Yeah.
what if they give you money, it's like,
No,
but it has
yeah.
to be because it's guided into something that is
I don't
fully
think,
beneficial
I don't
for the
think,
city.
money is not the reason why we would make a proclamation, but it can be part of a reason why we would consider making a
Well, that's
proclamation,
the
for
Arbor
sure.
Day one,
Right.
I personally, that's,
Big factor.
Yeah, and again, I don't wanna belabor, I just plant the seed that the reason why I make arguments about intellectual consistency and trying to do things the same way over and over again is, I don't like being in a position where I'm trying to make a decision one way this time, and then I make a different decision another time with the same kind of set of circumstances. I don't like, being in that position myself, I don't like us a council being that.
Well, and that's a big part of what we've been trying to do several years and why we have these people. It's to improve our processes,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And so the point you made is an excellent one and we need to
Yep, I don't have any problem with it.
Consistency.
Probably won't be until that May meeting.
Yeah, and that's fine.
I thought 2 weeks, come on.
I have to finish it tonight and have it ready, and I know.
Perfect, you have hours.
And so I would plant a seed of consideration, right?
Is
So,
that
so the
fun on
question
trees?
is, what do you wanna do with the Arbor Day Foundation, or the Arbor proclamation that exists right now?
I think you bring it back on
You're
2
bringing it
weeks,
back
we
2
vote on
weeks.
it, and we can
Yeah.
have a discussion on it, we vote on it, pass it.
And that doesn't, like you said, it doesn't bind us to anything. We're still in the process of making a policy around them in the future.
As I said, most of the cities I've had, the only time they did a policy was they gave authority to the mayor to do proclamations because they got tired of
We should
them
do
all
that.
coming.
Just give us
Put it all in there.
Don't you dare.
Otherwise,
I think
it
we can
was
get 4
whatever
votes for
they,
that.
if they got enough counselors who
I think-
supported it.
I already get that, cause Staggs does it for Bremerton, cause he's a different, why didn't you do that?
It's a different form of government,
Just,
yeah.
exactly, I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I had to explain that.
And I would just put it this way. When we have the ability for members of our community to come forth at the beginning of one of our meetings and say prayer or some type of religious observance before our own council meetings, and then us not make a declaration in support of religious freedom, those appear to me to be inconsistent applications of what we're talking about as well. And I understand the idea we don't want to get in the middle of national debates and firestorm issues and those kind of things. I'd just like us to consider what are the things that we really stand for as a community? What are the things that are really important to our residents? And are we acting inconsistent? I think, Arbor Day, our community likes trees. They love nature. It doesn't matter what side of a political argument you're on, that's something that I think we all generally support. And so, I don't want us to necessarily start getting onto the edges of controversy or anything by what we do. I'd just like us to, again, consider how we can consistently apply something. So,
Okay, a little bit, okay.
thank you guys.
Do you have an update?
Oh, tomorrow.
Yeah, if you have other ideas, you can email
Just
them to me
kidding.
and I'll.
Okay, so let's go to 3.2.2.
Okay.
So let's put a time
How
limit
much
on
time?
that.
Yeah, so let's do half hour.
How long, half hour, okay.
Okay, so let me explain a little bit what I'm thinking here. I'm gonna ask my staff to take notes as well, so we all write down the notes, then we should, and we get together, we should be able to capture what was actually said.
Jonathan's
Not
a
just
co-pilot
Jackie
in this
writing
over there
notes.
right now.
So, so the intent right now, it's not quite speed dating, but just kind of your gut. Start talking about what you think are the challenges we're facing in the next, I'm gonna give you a time frame. Let's say 10 years. We don't have to, I don't wanna solve them, so try not to go to what the solution would be, but let's think about what are the challenges, and they can be challenge today, it could be a challenge that you see in 10 years, but just listen. And I also encourage you to think of the yes and approach. So if somebody says something and you think, well, it's not quite that, you say yes and add to it. We're just gonna write them all down. We'll compile that list and email it to you, and then the next time we do one of these, you'll have had time to think about it. What are some of the solutions? Which are the top things we have to deal with, and how do we start to address them? Because you, as Councilor Henderson said, you represent people, you hear things, you've lived here, you see things. The challenges you see are probably different than sometimes the challenges staff sees, because we end up often in weeds, down dealing with specific projects, or we're doing this and you're hearing it from a different perspective. So that's the intent of our little exercise here, and I gotta find I will write, I'm not a great scribe, but I'm gonna try to be. And I'm gonna grab 2 pens because I'm pretty sure one of them's already dead. We have it as
Whatever
usual.
topic you put up there, my concern is long-term financial stability.
I was gonna say the
Parks
same
or
thing.
public
Coming
safety,
from financial planner.
roads. It's all about
You're a
money.
financial planner.
I know. I'm so boring.
Okay.
No,
I just haven't heard that before.
yes, and I would add to that, revenue sources for the city is a part of that consideration, right?
You did the and.
Yes,
and.
yes,
I did. I was really proud. That's really good.
Yes, and relationships. Seat at the table.
If you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu, right? Old saying.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Look, finance is gonna be a part of every single thing that we talk about, no matter what, so I think that's a great one to put up there, but I would say, transportation infrastructure, moving people around in our community is gonna be a big concern now.
To get
and-
people in and out.
So those are the number one complaints I get, moving in and out of this community.
Yep. Connectivity, right, all that kind of stuff is part of that.
East-west solutions, those things, we just have nothing, and we don't really have anything planned.
Yeah,
Public Works,
I'm forever concerned about road maintenance and how we're ever gonna
Public
keep up with
safety.
it.
public works, public safety.
And all
housing.
infrastructure, water infrastructure,
kids are gonna solve that though.
parks.
Daddy, we're not talking solutions.
I know. You get more of it. Man, you do.
I'm really concerned about
I missed
being able
one,
to
but-
pay for the parks that we have, let
Yeah.
alone any that we're adding.
Part of the,
So having partnerships, right, that we've been talking about.
Yes, and I'll add a political one on there. We are, as a nation, in my view, under invasion. And we're feeling those impacts in our community. And financially, that continues to have an impact on us. We're paying for, police officers, schools, things like that and it's absorbing finances. And we have to address it.
I have some great stories to tell about that one, I do.
impacts from federal policies on just about anything.
That's probably true.
I mean, there, you know, policies on air and water quality trickle down to,
Everything.
you know, fees we have to charge and stuff. They really negatively impact a lot of our finances.
One thing we've talked about as we make this list, staying in our lane. It's easy to, as maybe we cross our fingers, start to see more revenue. It's easy to start programs and things that are duplicates of
Existing or more.
other, other agencies or municipalities that provide.
Sorry.
Incorporation of county properties. Such as High Country or surrounding areas.
Annexation.
Annexations, yeah.
And it's part of, yes,
By country, we don't want you.
relationships are the same.
Well, I don't think we got a
I
choice.
don't know how we would articulate this other
Right.
than,
Yeah.
somebody has a better way to articulate it, please say this, but I would say, competing interests of neighboring cities.
Yeah, yes, and I believe that that's part of relationships, right? And I think relationships are part of staying in your lane too. I think it's good to have good communication, but it's really important to make sure that it's even like our policy we're talking about
between the cities.
proclamations. You know, really, a lot of my proclamation policy is about staying in my lane.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
And
Yeah.
the same with relationships. It's good to have relationships, but you gotta be careful not to let them get blurred between some lines.
Yeah, we just had a conversation about it the other day, right?
Yeah.
About staying in your lane can sometimes get clouded because of good intentions.
Yeah.
Right? You want to contribute some way, you wanna do things are good, but it's just not what we,
Those relationships
not what we do.
Yeah.
Negative relationship.
Staff retention.
I think there's I'm gonna add on to something that kind of goes along this. And this is by, Jackie, do not get mad at me for saying this. You're gonna flash me
Earmuffs,
eyes as soon as I say this, I
Earmuffs.
know.
Where is he going?
I feel called out.
No. I think there is a disconnect that exists between citizens and their government at all levels. We talk about how the decisions that we make at a municipal level impact people's lives far more on a daily basis than what's happening, you know.
County,
in
state,
the
federal.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet, people pay so little attention to what we're doing. they have a hard time getting answers to questions. I have a hard time getting answers, just like, what meeting did we talk about that in, and who said what? That was, 3 years ago, and I can't remember what meeting, I don't even remember what agenda that was on, right?
I've got a file for it.
And I'm sure you do. But, that ability to let people engage with their government in a way that allows for a better dissemination and evaluation of data and information, right? And I know this is a very, very broad kind of topic, but, I was just thinking about, we have residents who are mad as hell every time some new higher density buildings are getting built, and they're
Anytime
saying,
anything changes.
right, and they're mad, they're saying, this stupid city council, they're getting paid off from the developers to approve this, and we're like,
Where's my check?
those things were approved 17 years ago, we got nothing to say about it. But yet, there's nothing that says where they can go, when was that land entitled? How did that decision get made? And there's no way to get any of that kind of information readily available in the hands of the public to not only understand what we're doing, but to hold us accountable for the decisions we really are making, right?
Steve, what I've heard you kind of say is there's always going to be members of the community who are apathetic, right? They're just not engaged.
Right.
But when they do choose to engage, you're hoping that that is a little bit easier process
Transition.
of
Yeah, I
either
mean-
asking the question or getting the
So
information.
you go in and you type something in the search bar and you say, when did we make a decision about Olympia? And it brings up,
Yeah.
Olympia was the place where the gods dwelt in ancient Egypt, and you're like, that has nothing to do with what I'm trying to find out.
I'll speak very frankly, we have grown so fast.
Yep.
And in my team, you're right, there's a lot of need for improvement as far as getting that information organized and then being able to even share it publicly.
Is that a
And
database
we're working
thing?
on that, Nathan.
So without getting to
Yeah.
solutions, but that's one of the
Yeah.
things we talked,
Yeah.
so how do you?
Yeah.
Software.
We talk about transparency, and I think that's, sometimes people are like, well, you made a decision, but what they lack is the access to be able to see the data.
Yeah.
Or they still have to put effort in to understand contextually what it all means, cause there was some Facebook about a lady, somebody needs to explain it to me. We try to do that in staff reports, but I think it's, how does somebody get data? Cause here, it's hard. I admit that, I have to go to
It's-
Jackie
it's
all the time,
messy.
and internally, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's hard internally, it's
You know what you're
impossible
looking for.
externally.
Yeah, right.
So quick example, just a couple days ago, I had a neighbor email me asking, and his email was, hey Jared, I wanna be better informed, I wanna understand the water stuff better.
Yeah.
I was like, can you point me towards the meetings that this was discussed and the information?
exactly what-
So I'm like, oh yeah, no problem, and I go in to try to give him the path, and I was like, holy crap.
That is exactly what I'm talking about.
Like I
Jared.
can't, I had a hard time giving him a path to find the information.
Right, where we say, hey, this is the meeting where we had our first presentation on water rates. Here's the things that the
Here's where we
council
are with
was
consultants.
challenged them and blew up their plans for 6 months, right? So they had to go back and start over. Then they came back and then we hit it in this meeting and then here's where we talked
When
about.
where I told him you really should look at the study that was done. Well, how do I get him to the study?
Right.
Right? And like which meetings? Well, there's thing for city council agendas, but to a resident, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Right? And then when you go to that page, then there's a link for the video of the meeting and right. And it's just
It's almost like hashtags on, people put a blog post up and then they hashtag the crap out of it. So you can go search that hashtag and it brings up everything that's ever been connected to that, right? I mean, that's probably more a solution.
and I think part of this, Jonathan has done a great job in changing a lot of things in outreach to residents that are now kind of spurring more questions and they want, like this one, it wasn't criticizing, it was just, hey, I'd like to know more,
Yeah.
how do I do it? And a lot of it is the website. I brought this up to Nathan, I don't know, a couple months ago probably. Like I've been sitting on this one because there's been bigger fish to fry, but can we do a better job pushing out like this actual information on changes that we're making in decisions versus the fun stuff? I know the fun stuff is fun, but there's a very small number of residents who engage in that versus overall population, right? You're talking 60,000 people and you have an average engagement of a few hundred about the Yeti, and one of them is me saying I freaking hate him. I hope somebody on the Yeti hunt actually hunts him. But we do so much of,
He's not here.
traditionally, we've done so much of that versus pushing out the.
Yeah.
that.
Right.
In defense of our communications team, they want that information. We're just all so busy, we're having a hard time feeding it to them.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They're ready.
Now-
Which
now-
we,
now
so we're back to
yeah.
finances and
Yeah, so
revenues
we
and
embed-
staff and
We
time
embed
and
John to meetings with engineering so he can hear the information,
Yeah.
but then he's in that meeting, he's not doing it.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
so that is actually, I've written it a couple different
appropriate
ways.
staffing.
I think it's,
for the needs, right? Staff retention and finding the funds to staff for our growth needs, right? You know, we need more record keeping, more database administration. I mean, these are all
Then
parts
we need
of
more
this.
space,
Yeah,
and we need, yeah.
and more computers.
No
I mean, it
solutions,
just-
no solutions.
No, nothing. And we have to do all this without spending any money, yes.
I don't know about in the next 10 years, but staff retention sometimes also goes to staff transition because in the building
Yeah.
department, those types of things, you're gonna transition out of rapid growth type of thing into, a more mature city, a built out kind of situation to where there'll be a transition in staffing also.
Yeah, in 25 years, we probably won't need very many building inspectors, right?
They'll do every basement
I think-
finish or.
I think
Oh,
you'll be
that's-
surprised.
no,
When I go through the
80% of
list.
those don't have.
Remodels,
It's surprising when you look at the
Almost
list
done with
and
me,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have a permit for that.
Really, all the homes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you, maybe change expectations.
Some houses
But-
don't
Or,
built out.
or maybe we can split apart, we can have one person do park inspections and then the sexton not be the same role, I'm just saying.
I think it's an excellent point, Sherry, because for so long, and I'm looking at the back of Justin's head, hopefully he can back me up on this, but really the
You
focus.
see yourself in it? It's pretty strong. You waxed it today, it looks good.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but really up until now, the entire focus has been on growth. Growth, and we are transitioning right now,
We're
whether
hitting
we
the
realize it or
cusp of
not,
high hand, yeah.
right? So, yeah, across the board in every department, I think that applies.
Yeah, and because that will transition even into infrastructure, cause that staff has to transition from growing into now going back and upgrading things
Maintaining,
or
yeah,
or
fixing.
maintaining and fixing.
Transition after that as well.
Yeah.
60+% built out now, so we're over we're no longer saying, hey, we've got more to do than we have.
By the way, those growth projections were cool.
Oh, that's
For
from Trevor.
Trevor the other day, that was kinda interesting.
That
I-
was
I-
frightening,
I
but
mean,
cool,
yeah.
because all that transportation portion of that was frightening.
Well, it's a lot less than what they were originally.
Yeah.
I think there's some, and that actually, I think this staff, there are some things I see with the demographics in Utah changing. I think I shared that,
Yeah,
the changing Utah, but reading what's happening in the United States and with population, we are going to be dealing with some very interesting changes as a state, nationally, as populations are slowing down.
Well, just our discussion, yesterday, about average household size, right? And look at Olympia and that kind of density, you're not having a family of 4 or 5 in those places.
No,
I mean, the demographic.
but you have
is
the
just-
outliers and stuff, but yeah, that's different, was it 3 point something households?
Well,
So
we were
we-
at 3.8, 3.9 at one point, just a couple
In
years ago.
2010,
Yeah,
2020 are at 3.3. They project Salt Lake to be at 2.3 in the next, and Utah County to be at 3.2. So Trevor, I think, picked like 2.9.
7
He
or
put us
2.9.
like in the middle, saying we would have, we're influenced by both areas, but so we're a little higher than Salt Lake, but not as high as some of those original
our kids are
projections.
not as likely to have as many kids as our generation had, you know?
This is quite a list. So there are a few other things that some of this exercise is just what's your gut say.
I'm gonna put out another thing that it may be a problem depending on what other solutions we come up, right? And that is, I think there are employment needs. Employment centers it's partly a problem, partly a solution, right? Services being provided in our community, we now have the ER, is there a need for a hospital? Is there a need for higher education, campuses growing? Are there more, financial services and, not just financial planners or banking, but, we don't have any mortgage companies or title companies or, any of those kind of services in our community. I don't know if we have very many CPAs or tax preparation things, or, you know what I mean?
We don't have many office.
Right, so
We
what
don't
I'm
have
saying
office,
is,
Yeah.
right?
is something that provides, so people can do what they need inside of the community without having to travel outside of the community to get some of those things done.
Yeah, because when,
Which is,
When they
again,
annex-
partly a solution.
yeah, but when they annexed the chunk that was gonna be our industrial area, our job centers, those kind of things, that's no longer coming here. And so how are we backfilling that loss of that planned use?
It's hard
Not
because
only
we can't
that,
force
it's
it.
not even going to be a use in the area that annexed it,
Exactly,
right?
but
They're,
we
they're
have
just
to-
completely
we really need to
cross that off
backfill
of
that
the
use.
future, yeah.
To me, that kind of falls into the category, so the planning part of it is, like we were talking about with the athletic complex, is setting those aside. So whether it's commercial, whatever the zoning is, commercial, we've talked about, get into the weeds of that, but we talked about the differences in some of the zoning to encourage that, but that was my comment in the last meeting, and I apologize, I wasn't here, but I didn't want to spread what I had to anybody, and it was really gross of me, stepping out every 2 seconds with the tissue. But to me, it's about the dollars and cents, right? So service is great, but they can only be here if there's a place for them to be.
Right, yeah.
If it's all houses, if it's all fast food, et cetera. So the conversation I'm referring to is, well, we wanna restrict certain types of businesses in favor of the commercial tax dollar. Well, my comment to Teddy, the next meeting was, well, there's an ecosystem, right? You need the offices, whether it's a dentist office or an orthodontist or a tax prep or whatever it is, even a bank or a credit union, if they're paying property taxes, they're paying those property taxes, which helps us on one side of things, and it brings people in there that then allows them to go next door.
The restaurant during
Right, to
lunchtime.
do those things, so
Yeah.
we don't have, to your point, there's no office space.
Ecosystem is a really good way to say that, right?
You don't need a 5-story office building, but some of the strip
Some
mall
stuff
stuff,
coming in,
right, yeah, I mean, we do need an office space, we need the places that bring people into those areas to spend money,
Yeah.
but don't necessarily generate the sales tax dollar, but they
Yeah.
contribute property tax and other things.
Jared, you just demonstrated something that I've been thinking about, is that so much of our development has happened rapidly with kind of a very myopic focus. And I think we're gonna find that there are some gaps in our land use, like there are some things that are missing. And the opportunity is going to be, is there a way to kind of plus some of our neighborhoods and maybe fix some of those gaps so that we are more desirable over time?
It's almost
And-
until tight.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
the other side of the coin is, I think we're gonna find some neighborhoods that are not
How and where.
kind of weathering time very friendly. And then we're gonna be dealing with more maintenance issues, more code enforcement issues.
That's a big one.
So I think, yeah, we gotta figure out how to kind of maybe do
Right.
some correction to some of the development patterns that we've had.
I think, Michael, this also goes into land use decisions, right, Sherry's often said water is gonna be an issue. Does that change, how we plan for great neighborhoods, right? Do we have park
How we plan
strips?
for
How do
parks.
what kind of parks do we have, All of that kind of things are gonna be constrained somewhat by the resources that we have.
Yeah.
And so it may be, here's best practices is what's most desirable, facing, we only have so much of this we can use, right? I think that, with relationships and all that kind of stuff is that, I think the more, let me put it this way. A city identity is something that, what makes Harriman Harriman? What are we different? What brings people here? I think that's a really important thing to talk about, and that's why some of the conversation we had earlier tonight about something that is boom, like what's in Sugar House? Sugar House Park is, I mean, it's great, and everything around it is kinda ancillary to this great big ol' honkin' beautiful park they have right in the middle of the city, right?
And they had a redistricting, rebuilding, and so they did great.
Yeah, they rezoned a whole bunch of stuff and revamped.
Historically, and those that have been here have had those discussions, and it's really come back to the cul-de-sac thing,
Yeah.
right? Location,
Destination thing.
location has a lot to do with that. Well, and this goes with my comment in the other meeting. And again, I'm beating the horse to death on this, but really what we have is the opportunity to open up recreation. I mean, really, that's the only, to me, for this part of it, to help that is we've gotta bring people in here
Yeah.
to recreate, spend some money and then go home for their services. But and we have to have a little bit of foresight with the project that we were talking about, right? I mean, if you don't take some risks or set something aside, it can't happen. Can we further partnerships with the county, other property owners in these hills up here? There's a lot of political backing to open up some recreation,
And
right?
I would say, I think that is such an obvious answer, right? Outdoor recreation, playing off of, the RSL Academy and the fact that it exists here and being, the collegiate rugby shit, like, there's a lot of things that we're going in the recreation and sports thing that are just so obvious.
How do you monetize
Our
that?
I know, and how do we monetize that? That's an important part of the discussion. I don't know that can be the only option for us as a city with our identity, and I think it's worth us talking about, like, how did, I can't remember what city it was, that they were just like, we're gonna be the financial capital of the, Charlotte, North Carolina, we're gonna, and then suddenly 20 years later, every bank and financial company in the world is moving there.
made it,
Yeah, and so there's almost like a declaration of we're this. That's why they come up with names like Silicon Slopes, because they want an identity that brings that kind of thing to
When
there.
you hear
So-
that, you know it's.
Right, it's a marketing thing, right? But a broader consideration of that can be something that we should be looking at, right?
I would say
That's what, yeah.
maintaining our.
Greatest
relationship
teeth in
with
the
Camp
nation.
Williams, with Camp Williams. Because I think we're gonna be pushed up against a couple decisions there that we need to make sure we're on the right side of.
Which is some of what you're talking about, our ACO money that that relationship, that partnership with the federal government has helped preserve that. It's given us a trail system that I do believe we pull from Draper. We pulling people out here from Corner Canyon.
Starting to now,
Just
yeah.
starting to use our trails and
Look
stuff
what,
like that.
and look what Burgess just announced today, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Massive.
But part of
$300
the, part of the trouble with that is we don't have good access to a lot of our trails. We haven't preserved good places for people to go and park, those types of things. That's a problem. Cause we're having some good trails, but then no access, or we have an access and then now people are
There's
pissed
nowhere
to
to
park
park.
there, you know what I mean? Now,
Site access, yeah, that's a big.
so site access for our trails is a problem.
I mean, it's
Or
part of
challenge.
that, I'm again a broken record of this, those that have been here have heard me say this a million times with the development along the hills is ingress and egress.
Yeah.
It's a great little subdivision, but we need access to the recreation, we need roads that allow people to get in and out of there and take them past our commercial centers on the way.
And not parking everybody's cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big list, and I'm sure that's.
There's a lot of, I think
So we're done.
I'll have to think about it, but I do see some themes running through that we'll compile, like I said.
Consolidated.
So I've done this in the past, but we've done it kind of consecutive, like we do this, then we take a break, we put it, and then everybody come back, but because of we're gonna give you more, we'll send it to you so you have a little bit more time. I'm curious if that's gonna work, or if next time we say, no, let's do it all at one time, but, like I said, I've normally done it as a retreat. We do this, then staff would do all this stuff and council would go, we were at a university, so they'd go get their food and their donuts and come back and then we tackle it again. But we'll take this and.
Can I make a
put there.
suggestion here
Sure.
too? And look, I don't wanna put anybody on the spot or put anybody in an uncomfortable situation, but there are obvious things that I'm sure staff sees that we as a council have not mentioned or we're not talking about. And I don't think that staff input should be excluded. In fact, I think it should be a part of.
So one of the things we'll do is we'll give you this list and then we'll include the list. I'll take my
Augmented
staff through
or
the same exercise.
That'd be really cool.
And say, what do we see? Because again, I liken it to the art class that are all sitting around the apple and drawing the apple, and one side sees an apple with a bite on the other, see your perspective
So
really
Yeah,
does matter.
absolutely.
And so we get, I think we're often looking at the bite side, I don't know.
And then we need some
I think
Venn
to build on
diagrams.
that a little bit, one thing, you talk about our growth and we've always been focused on growth. And as we're transitioning, we've got a lot of areas in this town that are empty open spaces, fields in the middle of Old Town that need
Yeah.
developed.
Or like those
Our
parcels we saw
code-
tonight.
Our code doesn't allow for development very easily in there.
Yeah.
They require weird flag lots and weird developments because we have this private road code and this A110 zoning that requires this weird density criteria.
Yes,
And so people are always stretching for stuff that doesn't fit just right because we don't have, so we need to have our code start to transition to what we're going to be here.
That was the first thing I wrote down. Smarter infill tools.
Cause
I
the
think
concern
it's-
raised about
all
that
of
development
this-
15
You
years
cheated.
ago
You read the
don't really
footnotes.
apply to where we're at now.
But
Yeah, it's gotta change.
this idea of, let's identify the concern areas. I think that you're touching on something I think is really important, is that the codes that we have, the kind of businesses we're attracting, the way that we're solving transportation, the way we approach public safety, right? All of those things should be part of a cohesive vision of what we want to be, right? And they should shape how we make a lot of those decisions. You guys have heard me use the Alice in Wonderland analogy, right? Which road should I take? Well, where do you wanna go? Well, then it doesn't matter which road you take, right? When we have a clearer vision of what it is that we wanna be, that starts making those decisions a lot easier. We wanna take this road because it's getting us closer to our destinations, right?
So like I said, we'll create this and I would,
30 minutes.
we'll send it to you and start thinking, well, what are some solutions? This has been a really interesting, what is our other identity? Maybe spend some time as council, as individuals, just thinking, ask your constituents, what is it that we are? What is it, what are we going to be as we grow up? We're 25, we're finally getting kicked out of our parents' basement,
We still got medical for one more year.
We got one more year on medical, we got one more year on medical insurance.
You
and
gotta
then
start
we're
making
fully-
some plans here.
We're fully adults, so I think it's an interesting opportunity to say, okay, here's what's happened, here's where we're going. A lot of, I think, our decisions, we were after that quick sugar rush, right? So pixie stick planning.
I call
It's
it
like, ooh, that's
crack,
good,
but
let's-
you
That's a
use it
great
for-
way to put it.
Right? We got quick sugar, we were great, and now we're looking back saying, I don't know if that was a good decision. I don't feel so
As
good.
nutritious as we
One last thing, when it comes to any of this, especially, so how do you track businesses and your code, and those things absolutely have something to do with it. But again, we're the cul-de-sac. So I think success in almost any of these is transportation. So when we're
Yeah,
working
it
with
really
partners
is.
and getting money for roads, et cetera, getting the number of cars passing a location will get you a law firm or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's not just how many people are out here, it's how convenient is it to get in and out of there,
These
right? And
buildings
pass
out
by
front.
there every day.
Yeah, and
We
I'll
can,
tell you,
we can plan as much as we want for all this stuff, but if it's not convenient or realistic to get in and out,
it'll
it
be
doesn't matter.
really interesting after we sort these things out to try and put them in order. That'd be a really interesting exercise, because I would believe that transportation becomes an issue
With every one of
impacting
them.
so many of these things down the road.
Yeah.
And maybe as we look at it, we'll figure another way to look at it. But boy, isn't that
I
at
think the
heart of
more
a
you
lot.
have here, the less you're traveling, right? It's potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I was just gonna go right there. We accept that there's a large amount of leakage in this community because we just simply haven't had the services.
Yeah.
But as more and more of our commercial centers are built out, we're still gonna have leakage. We've gotta figure out, how do we capture
Corner out there.
that,
Right, when I said
Yeah,
Silver
that
River,
our
that's
own residents,
transportation.
right?
Yeah.
Because
We
when
need
you
people
stay
to
in the
be
city,
coming in and
you don't have so much problems with transportation.
That's right.
You know,
But-
working during
But
the day,
right now,
it's-
people have to get medical care in
Yeah,
another city,
yeah.
they gotta go to work in another city,
Gotta
their
play
kids have
soccer
to
in
go
another
practice
city.
in another
Yeah.
city, right?
Yeah.
The,
Yeah.
they have to go, you know, family has to come stay in another city in order to come visit them here, right? You wanna go out to dinner, you're going into
transport out
another
to-
city, right? And so the more of that stuff that we can bring into our city, it does reduce the traffic
That's
impact, right?
filling those missing gaps,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Alright.
Look at that.
That was really cool, guys.
Good discussion.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody. I love that. I think we're on the same page. I realize the council. Like, can I say
I'm
that?
on a chair.
Yeah, that page, you're on that page.
I'm on a chair.
Big.
Unalignment there.
Can I just, like, seriously though, like, thank you for this council, I mean, we have our little, we give each other a hard time. Y'all can't stand me, but apart from that.
Some people don't like the consent agenda.
Get me started.
Some people don't like developers and make that.
Oh, man, you got called out.
Did I hit that one on the spot though?
Yeah, you sure did.
Okay, well, I will thank you, everybody, and look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Alright,
Go home. Thank you, everybody.
when is the last time we set a 30-minute time limit and stuck to it?